Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is March 6th. Friday for me. Hope it's your Friday. Hope you're having a great Friday and you're going to have a great weekend. And thank you for joining me. Today's talk, I'm going to be focusing on the future of work. I think I'm going to lean into that for a little bit, unless someone wants me to talk about something different. But specifically for today's topic in relation to the future of work will focus on stop dressing up fear as a policy. And I feel that that's something that relates not only within society, but also, of course, within the workplace. And when I say future of work, I also mean the future of society. So maybe I should change that. I don't know. Y'all let me know. But for now, future of work it will be. And it's really just focusing on why corporations and societies, government, mind you, is work as well. That's a workspace. Hold on to these same archaic systems. That is something I've been talking about since the beginning of February, since I've been going live about these talks, is the need and the fear behind holding on to these archaic systems and how these archaic systems are holding us back and preventing us from actually living in a prosperous future. This is ridiculous. When we think back to how we're currently operating within society and within the workplace and just government as well, work everywhere, all it is work, how we are so far behind and how we kind of touched into where we could have went in regards to the future and the future of work and the future of operations within society and within workspaces was during the pandemic, because that was a time where it was requiring us to immediately adapt. Even though the same ways that we were adapting, we pretty much were already operating, but it was not a part of our structure and our systems and processes because of fear, because of the need to hold on to the past. When we think about just communicating and telework and remote work, and even the idea was already there and it was already occurring through, the push into globalization since the 90s. But it never really was something that was truly adopted. And even then, during the beginning of the pandemic and then now after, it's not something that has been one that people have wanted to continue to embrace, which is very strange that we can push for the idea of AI and technology and all these tech advances, but we don't want to understand and recognize the importance of remote work and other aspects of how we can work in a more futuristic society. The fear behind that, and what is that fear, and how that fear is driving unnecessary change and actually keeping us from being successful and moving forward. I mean, even when we speak about that, companies still want to hold on to the 9 to 5 work design, factory floor process model idea. Not global teams, not knowledge workers, not workforce that paved the way during the pandemic and that output that mattered more than the office hours. It's the idea that we can only work one way and that one way is the right way. And that is not necessarily true. The way we operate, the way we work is how our businesses need to be designed. And that's focusing on the human aspect. The human is the one that is driving performance. The human is the one that is driving how we operate, driving success. And they're the ones that need to be in a situation where they can operate effectively. And that can only occur if they are actually understood, if their needs are being met, and that the work design is aligned with what they need. That is one thing that's not being understood. That is one lesson that should be learned. If with any business mindset and all the leadership books and all the things out there, you know, the understanding should be based on what works best for employees so that they can perform effectively. How can leaders ensure that they're inspiring others? All of that comes from understanding the needs of workers, the individuals. It's no different than within politics, them understanding the needs of, their constituents. It's the same idea and the same approach, but that same understanding, which is obviously common sense, when you look at psychology and the understanding of humans and how we operate, that approach is never taken. And if it is being taken, there's always a reason to pull back for some reason because of the idea of profit first always being put first. And that's something that holds us back. The need to grasp to archaic designs with the idea that that's going to level the playing field, but it doesn't. It's just mandates and policing. It's the measuring of presence instead of performance. Presence doesn't determine if someone is actually doing the job correctly. Presence doesn't determine that the people that are in the space are even competent enough to do the type of work that needs to be done. Presence doesn't guarantee actual results. People in a space doesn't necessarily mean that they're working. That's one reason why people feel as though they need to micromanage. Mind you, micromanaging is that the work is to be done either or that it is done effectively. All of these understandings and approaches must be understood, but they are not being understood because of the archaic design that is leading us into the future. The need to try to permit things, right? And to feel as though change is not something that is necessary for us to move forward. I mean, the statistics say there's about 16% of companies worldwide that are fully remote, right? And it has not hindered their productivity at all. And of course, we know when we look at how individuals work, I mean, not how individuals work, but how companies operate determines on the products and services. So yes, there are situations where you cannot have fully remote. We get that. That is already understanding and that is pretty clear, right? But the understanding that it shouldn't be a factor at all is something that makes you go like, why is that? Why are we running from this? What is this push to focus on the need to control? Because that's what it really is. It's not moving us forward. It's just an idea of a best practice that isn't aligned with the needs of the workforce or the desires of the workforce. It's aligned with the desires and the wants of leadership. And those desires and wants of leadership don't always align with the desires, wants, and needs of employees. And that's something that must be understood. We can't always put the leader and those in power first. Those who are there to execute are the ones that must be in power, really. They're the ones that need to be making the decisions. They're the ones doing the operating. They're the ones, moving things forward. So this is why it's important to understand how fear is all about control. And fear is usually dressed up as a policy because these policies are designed to keep us from moving forward. And they're designed in that way because of fear. So, how can we move forward? How can we really be ready and have a productive future of work, right? A productive workforce, a productive modern workforce. And what does that actually look like? That obviously looks like a place where people want to come, a place people desire to be, a place where people are working and not feeling like they are a slave, a place where people feel as though their needs can be met so that they can work productively, regardless of what type of work that is. That all revolves around the needs of the worker, as we all know through psychology tells us that, right? So we got to understand first and foremost what is being protected or what is trying to be protected to prevent us from moving forward. When we see the layoffs that are going on and we're trying to understand why they're occurring And, many say, oh, well, we're looking to focus on more AI and automation. Okay, we get that. But even then, you have the need for oversight. So we have to understand that just because we're implementing more technology doesn't mean that we can't also understand that we have to have oversight. And that's where we move into these types of fear-based policies, and the hindrance of us moving forward in the future of work, because it's all about looking towards technology as a replacement for the human, right? But then for the human, we also need presence. We all also need you there in the workspace, even though there's not much space for you. So that highlights how there really is no understanding of what the future of work is from those in power and those in leadership positions. They have no real idea of where we are going when it comes to future of work. And that's where us as leaders have to help navigate that misunderstanding and that lack of understanding and the lack of just even curiosity of where the future of work can lead us. We as leaders have to be the ones to step up and make that change and guide that ship and navigate us into a future of work where human is first, where fear is not policy, and where actual change is about inclusivity, opportunities, and the recognition for the needs of all to be met. That is the key to the future of work. That is the key to releasing ourselves from archaic systems designed from the past, designed based on hate, designed based on the idea of upholding power and hindering opportunities for all. That can only occur if we as leaders step up and help to redesign these systems so that fear is not a policy and that change is based on inclusivity. That is the future of work, and that is what is going to drive us forward. Not policing, not, mandates of that lack understanding, you know, the constant debate, from some dude, always a dude, right? That thinks he knows, but he doesn't even know his workspace, doesn't know his workforce, and has no understanding of what it takes to operate within their business. That is something we as leaders within ourselves, as subordinates, as managers, as supervisors, as lower level workers, as those that are coming in and putting in the hard work, sweat, and tears, that is our responsibility for us to create and help to structure those policies, not for leaders and those in power to create them because they're only going to be based on fear and not fact. That is how we move forward. That is how we ensure that we are moving future of work in the modern workplace into a place that is desirable and not one that is unhealthy, not beneficial, and fear and based on fear and hindrance and lack of inclusivity. That's the key to change. That's the key to a successful and profitable future of work and opportunities for all. It's something that we need to recognize. That's something that we need to help to push forward. That is something that we need to not fear because best practices are archaic ideas. They do not move the future forward. They do not move or enhance how we work or operate. And that is something that we need to recognize in order for us to build a workforce and a workplace that is beneficial for all and, a society that is beneficial for all. That's the only way for us to move forward. That's the only way for us to benefit. And that's the only way to ensure an opportunity for all in a world that is successful for all. I thank you again for joining me for this talk. If you have any suggestions for the next talk, please put them down in the comments below. And until then, be the change, love yourself and others. Bye.